and welcome to episode 52 of the Titanforge podcast. My name is Ratnos, joined by Tettles and Trell as always. But this week, our special guest is Sham, aka Nason.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sham.
So, how would anybody in the community know you? Who do you raid with?
I raid with Big Dumb Guild as of the end of Legion. Been here the whole entirety of BFA.
That's impressive. An impressive feat. The whole expansion with one guild. This week, though, we are having you on the show to not talk about raiding, but instead to talk about Mythic Plus, where you actually have a very different YouTube series about Mythic Plus than people may be used to from most Mythic Plus YouTubes, where you are pugging your way up, right?
Yep.
This is something that'll be our main topic this week, but we'll talk all about this series where you just basically start a new alt, don't tell anybody about it, nobody knows its name, and you just pug up in the group finder, all by yourself with no help from any of that stuff, and try and get to a reasonable amount of score of some kind. Yeah, so that'll be our main topic this week. We're also going to talk a little bit about class utility in dungeons, where Shadowlands is kind of moving in this direction of some kind of unique class niche spells being pretty useful. And we see a little bit of that right now as well with the way the Awakened affix works in some spots too. But this is going to be...
Just wait. There is a boss in Theater of Pain that we're going to talk about that gets... I think it's so ridiculous. We're going to talk about it a little bit later, though.
Yeah, so that'll be part 2 of our main topic this week. But before we get to any of that, let's just talk a little bit about how the past week's been going for all of us. So, Sham, what have you been up to in the past week? Have you been doing any Mythic Plus on any mains, or just working on a new Pugging It Up character?
Mostly just the pugging thing, other than like weekly keys. And then tons of editing was this week's project.
Ah, yes. A favorite of all of us, for sure. Meanwhile, Tettles, Trell, and I have all been on our hunters pretty much for the past few days. This is now a hunter podcast. Tettles, how's the hunter life been treating you?
I've been getting significantly more dungeon invites, so things have been going well for me. It's kind of tilting knowing that, like, as soon as I reroll from a perceived bad class, which is probably actually bad, in Moonkin to Hunter, I get infinitely more invites. Kind of tilting, but whatever. You accept what you can get.
Trell, how about you?
Yeah, I've just been having fun playing Hunter. I swapped with a friend. He's playing Vengeance, and I'm playing Hunter as DPS instead of Brewmaster and Havoc. So, just been chilling and having a good time.
Yeah, I've been having a bit of fun as Hunter as well. Hunter, I don't know, in medium to low keys, it can get pretty Resident Sleeper, but when you start actually getting to like high keys, then you start having this problem of like, all right, how am I supposed to actually survive this ability that, you know, Demon Hunters survive due to DR, and like rogues survive with feint or cloak or whatever, and you're just sitting up there and you're like, well, I guess once every 3 minutes I can reduce the damage of this by 20%. All right. And you just
Every 30 seconds, or once every 25 seconds, you can feign death.
That's true. Yeah, you can get your feign death shields if you're playing duck and cover traits, but there's only one good piece of duck and cover as right?
Yeah, it's
the
N'Zoth helmet.
Yeah, or the Carapace helmet.
Okay, well, I don't know which one it's on.
Yeah,
for one of the two bosses.
I don't know. Either way, it's a scary spec to be playing high keys in for sure. All right, let's see. I guess let's advance to our main topic, but first, we get to thank our supporters over at patreon.com/Titanforge for supporting our show every week. They are Paul of US Proudmoore, King of Skills, VTech XD, Zuko, Ja, Drunk Swede from Legion of Lemmings, Argent Dawn EU, I Wish I Was Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Heltari, Blue of Emerald Dream, Chromed, Seraphicus, Trekkie, The Marshare, Regulus, Nevernude, Chewy. Preach Gaming says Shadowland Venthyr's teleport is potentially OP, but no one ever uses Ripple in Space Major. Skellies are just shadow imitations of real people like Gopher. Dratnos' main basement captive. Astral Recall Best Res. Can we call Urgroth the Tank Buster Grand Slam Gary instead? LXIX of US Thrall, of US Thrall is the real deal, unlike all other all other LXIX guilds are imitating. Salty Sunny, Dazboot, 7th best mage in guild. Brought to you by Dratnos the Excel Wizard, Brad Sarastrops, Nerf I-Beam, Trell's missing Captain Ahab beard, Necris in the Trelladin waiting room, and Anastasia of US Proudmoore. Thank you to all of you for the support. And wow, those names, we got some new ones in there this week, huh, Tuttles?
Yes. Something that I do want to mention is that now, for some reason, my group is calling Urgroth Grand Slam Gary.
that is pretty good. What do you guys think about the Venthyr teleport Ripple and Space Major comparison?
I don't know what the other options are yet, really, and so I don't want to make a judgment on it, but I feel like it's going to be in the same boat as Ripple and Space.
It's Stalwart, so it's the owl that brings you the potions that remove like all debuffs. Basically, it's Dwarf Racial.
That's way
Or
better.
Night Fae, which is a shitty version of Dash with a very small blink attached to it.
Well, but it
Or-
potentially comes with these abilities get upgraded.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Potentially later on they come with something better. And then Necro Lord is you channel for 3 seconds and you get a shield relative to 20% of your maximum HP.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that people focusing too much on Door of Shadows are in this mindset where you can get Door of Shadows and it doesn't like you can't just get Door of Shadows, right? You have to, if you're picking Door of Shadows, you're not just picking Door of Shadows over the Kyrian Flask ability. You're also giving up on your Covenant ability, like the class Covenant ability and the Soul Binds of the others.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think that the Venthyr teleport is going to be strong enough to make it a must pick for like I don't think it weighs on the balancing hard enough that you're gonna pick Venthyr over the other covenants just because there's so many variables that makes each one good. However, if there is a spot, if there's a multiple dungeons where like Venthyr teleport having on all 5 members lets you skip stuff, then yeah, that'll be really good.
So my thought process on it is exactly like Dratnos'. As long as it's additive and doesn't break an encounter, as long as there's due diligence done in terms of like how all of the covenants and all of the soul binds and everything functions inside of like raid encounters, dungeon encounters, and everything else, and as long as there's like a lot of time put in to make sure that these things are not inherently just going to destroy the dungeon, I don't really care. I think it's neat to have.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a lot of problems with covenants like swapping between them if you want to play multiple specs or raid and Mythic Plus on the same character or any of that stuff. But I don't. The reaction that I've had is not oh no, Venthyr teleport is the problem. The reaction I've had is oh no, I want to play this covenant for Arcane and this covenant for Fire, and what am I gonna do?
Sham, you have any thoughts, opinions on the matter?
I don't actually know how it works. Is it kind of like Void Elf Racial?
Yes, you like
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of similar to Void Elf Racial. It's actually very similar to how Ripple and Space ends up working. You actually just like put a reticle on the ground and then you channel for 1.5 seconds and you teleport to that reticle.
Yeah, I don't see many situations where you don't want to channel a blink over
Yeah, me
something
too.
else.
Like the
Yeah.
only thing I can think of in like recent memory is Una. Like that's the
It
only
would be really
one
good
where
for that. Yeah,
yeah, that's the only one where I can even remember that any of these.
it would be good on Azoth too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So would Stalwart ever break an encounter? Do you think?
The steward ability, you mean? Like
Yeah, the steward
file?
ability. Yeah, because it removes like bleeds too. It's literally Dwarf Racial.
Yeah, it would be really, really good for some things.
Yeah, it'd be good at Mythic Plus. I don't think it breaks any raid encounters.
Yeah,
They'd probably make it not break any raid encounters if it did. They
Yeah,
would fix it.
exactly. I think that's like an important distinction to make is that I don't know the last time that there like Unat's the only thing I can even think of. That
Void
you
Elf was
wanted to
really
blink.
good on Unat, but nobody switched Alliance for it on that fight. It was
Yeah.
just the guilds that happened to play Alliance were like, oh, this is really cool.
You couldn't even play it
Okay.
on. You couldn't even use it on something like Kill Jaden because it's a 1.5 second channel.
Right? Yeah, it would not have worked against the KJ knockback. Probably.
I assume you can't use it while moving. That wouldn't really.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
Although I
don't
think
think
that
so.
there's ways to upgrade all these abilities and like stuff like making cast times go away or making making stuff castable while moving, I think, is in there for some of these Covenant abilities. So the base like the upgraded versions might be pretty good. I don't know. I think that in Mythic Plus, like if you can use it to do like skips, that'll be really strong. But it just depends on if there's anything that gets, if there's a lot of stuff that gets skipped by it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our tip of the week segment, where we've got some helpful advice and some clips, I guess, or a clip as well. My tip of the week, I think we've already mentioned this, but I just want to reiterate it because people continue to not know it. You can save your Lesser Vision quests and do them all in one day, except for the Dark Glare quest. The Dark Glare quest only works the day that quest is active. Every other quest, you can just pick them up and then come back 5 days later with 5 quests in your inventory and just do all 5 of them in the same day. This is particularly useful for the Souls. The Souls quest is like impossible to do if you're not in a group on the day that it actually is active. Like everybody's just spamming those souls and it takes 5 minutes instead of 1. But if you come back on a day when that's not the active quest, you just get 8 souls very, very easily. So would recommend never going into that stupid portal except on the days where like one of the easy quests to do is up. So like kill 20 guys or fill to 100%, and then just do all your other quests on the same day with that. Or the Dark Glare quest. Obviously that's a good day to go in as well. All right. Trell, what is your tip of the week?
Mine has to do with the current affixes this week. So the main affix is Tyrannical, which is the one preventing everyone from doing high keys. But Tyrannical weeks are way out of balance with Fortified right now. I think there's something like 400 Fortified keys are done higher than the very top Tyrannical key.
I don't think so anymore, actually. I think that the gap is closed with this 27 Tyrannical timed a couple days ago.
Oh, yeah. One group did a 27 Junkyard that we just discovered this week, which is really impressive. But still, Tyrannical weeks is much more difficult to do higher keys on than Fortified. So what you want to do is if you're a DPS or healer class that's pretty squishy, or you don't have a constant DR like Feint, then you probably want to run some Avoidance Corruption. And there's an Avoidant Corruption on the vendor right now for rank 1. And if you put 1 or 2 of those on, you're likely to survive a couple key levels higher than you would have before on something like Kragma's Tantrum or Sporecaller's Ansh's AoE Big Blast, whatever it's called.
Festering Harvest.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, there's actually a resource for this that you guys may find helpful. JustHealUs.com. I've been using this a lot this week. So this website, you like can click your class, click your spec or whatever, put in all of your stats, and then you can go to a dungeon and see if you're going to live stuff, and see if you're going to have the same amount of like the right amount of health to beat any of the boss abilities. And then you can even put on externals, trinkets, resounding protections, NG shields, and see what you're living and what you're dying against. And this can be a really, really useful resource to figure out if you're dying on the 25 Tyrannical to all these different abilities. Because some of them, you see some of these things are like, okay, Soul Rend here is getting pretty close to one shot of your range in Nataldazar, for instance, at 567,000 damage.
I would say that for a lot of players, the only thing that like really matters too much on Tyrannical is Sky Captain Crag. I think that he starts one-shotting people at an abnormally low level. I think probably like 18s.
Yeah,
somewhere in there. 1920, I think.
On Tyrannical, 18 is 477k base, 19 is 525k, 20 is 578k, 21 is definitely where you're dead at 637k.
So yeah, I would say that 19 to 20 range is probably where like some people without full Mythic Azurite will start getting one shot.
Yeah. Of course, though, if you're a Havoc Demon Hunter, this factors in the demonic wards, and then you're just already chilling against all these things, basically.
Yeah, okay. 20% passive DR is absolutely just not fair.
Just 10%, just 10%.
Oh, sorry, you're right, 10%.
But you play a boatload of verse on that spec as well. This is a really cool tool because you put in your verse as well, and then you're like living so much of this stuff. But yeah, this is a really, really powerful way to figure that out. Avoidant, definitely worth using though. Definitely worth having access to. I think that's going to be one of the things to pick up before this vendor rotates is like a scroll or two of Avoidant 1. Anyways, Sham, do you have any tips for us this week?
So we're going to be talking about this more later, but my biggest tip for the day is if you can't get into a group and you want to do a key, just do your own key, even if you don't need it. You'll still get a new key, and you might actually meet people you can do keys with later too.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? If you keep running your own key, eventually that will be an upgrade for you. There's no way for that to not happen if you're timing the keys. So
Oh, okay. Well,
If you're timing the keys.
yes, just time some keys. It's easy. All right, Tettles. What is the clip of the week for us this week?
we have a clip from our friend of the show, Andy Rue, on the previous quaking week, and this can show the pitfalls of
Oh no.
quaking very quickly.
Okay. Oh no. Oh. Oh no.
Oh, you all wanted to go to one spot? Too bad.
Dude, everybody thought that they were special and everybody else was gonna run away.
Dude, this happens on Cujo a lot too.
Yeah, Cujo is actually the worst for this mechanic for sure. It's really tough actually. It's tough to solve that.
Just Howless is also pretty troll whenever he stuns you and you're just like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, or King Mechagon can do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 3 bosses in Workshop that are tough on quaking.
Yep.
Yep. Great affix. Next push week is a quaking week as well. Depending on what you believe to be a push week.
Grievous Sanguine, right?
Yeah, if you think Grievous Sanguine is a push week, then okay. But the Grievous or the Sanguine quaking week, I think, is the next like real big push week.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
All right, but for every week, basically, it's push week if you're trying to pug up your IO. So, Sham, why don't you explain to us the basic idea that led you to creating this YouTube series and like its history?
So like the big background information there is sometime, I think it was like after Tomb of Sargeras Prague, I got kind of bored, just wanted to like get into keys for the first time. And I was an LE Shaman at the time, which was like, no one did high keys as LE Shaman because they just died. So I kind of just started pugging, and I got to like 3K score from pugging in like 2 weeks, which at the time wasn't like amazing, but it was good. And doing that, I started finding people to play with, and I made a push group, and we ended up getting like 5K before MDI. And the group died on MDI, rip. But I started getting people
Classic.
like questioning things, or like telling me that it's like impossible to push up without having previous score or like mythic achievements, and I've been hearing that since then, like constantly from the community in general. And I got bored after Prague one day, and I was like, I should do something new. I want some consistent content on my channel. And I was like, why don't I make a new character and try that? And that's kind of how I started with that. Made a new character. I had to change the name so it wouldn't be on my Raider IO account anymore, and just started pugging on it. Want to see how it went?
All right, that was quite a while ago, right? For the first Pugging It Up series.
Yeah, that was the last patch.
It was a warrior, right? Like a
Fury Warrior.
Fury Warrior. Okay, and now you've got Pugging It Up #2 that you started a week ago. What's the spec you've chosen for this one?
This one's a Blood Decay because I wanted to try tanking.
Okay, very cool.
It's, in theory, the worst tank, right? But I think all like grips and stuns and everything I can actually kind of carry with this spec.
Yeah, I think so. It's weird. Blood Decay and Prop Paladin are like 2 of the hardest specs to do high keys on, but if you're pugging 15s or whatever, those are 2 specs that can actually just like live everything or interrupt everything, depending on which one of those you picked, and really carry.
I do think that it gives you a lot of control. I actually agree with that.
I've been loving the control on DK.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the premise is this is a character that nobody knows about that you play like off stream. Nobody knows his name, and you just do the Pugging It Up series with it and nothing else for it.
I actually do stream it, but yeah, I don't play with anyone I know.
Okay.
I try to avoid like accepting people that I don't think would actually need the key in case they're just trying to stream snipe.
I was going to ask, like, what do you do if you see a friend in the group that you just joined? You just leave, so it's not unbalanced at all?
Yeah, if they're like purposely trying to get to me, I'll try to get them to leave. But if not, I'm just going to leave. I don't want to. I got to keep it valid.
Shoot. I'm trying to do this for YouTube content. Get out of here.
I've kicked multiple people that like I figured out were stream sniping at this point.
Man,
if like they say something that like gives
That's
it away,
funny.
I'll kick them.
That's so stupid. I hate. Why can't people just let us stream cool stuff, man? They gotta come in here and snipe it, you know?
Some of them are sneaky too. They come on like alts that are super undergeared, which isn't like it makes it like a little more valid. But people try to get on their mains. Like it's why would a 480 character be queuing for my +9? Doesn't make any sense.
My
Like, decline them.
+9. Oh hell yeah.
Like, they're not. No one's gonna actually want to do a +9 when they're like 3K score.
So has that been how it's been going? Like you've been doing like keys in the sub 10 range on these characters?
Yeah, it's starting to get above that, but it hasn't been on the YouTube channel yet.
Okay.
So
We're getting there.
what are generally your goals? Because I think I remember with the Fury Warrior one, you wanted to get, was it all 15s in time?
Keystone Master and AOTC was the goal for that one.
Okay, what's the goal this time?
Yeah, what's the goal this time? Same thing?
So, well, last time, like 10 was the loot cap, right, in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
So 15s were like a little more prestigious. Now it's like everybody's doing 15s. So I think I want to go higher than that, but I haven't decided exactly where yet. Like maybe like 3K IO or something. I don't know.
Oh, 3K. I was thinking, I was like, man, is he actually going to try to go for all 20s while just pugging? That seems really daunting.
Yeah, I don't know how many
That'd be
Pug
hard.
20 KRs have ever been completed. Not many, I don't think.
You could get IO for those.
Yeah,
I'm thinking a Raider out goal is probably the best way to go about it this time.
makes sense.
I think 3.5 would be pretty good.
So
Only sell only 27.
how have you been getting your gear on these characters? Has it just been those runs, or have you been getting, like, do you pug raids as well in the series?
On my warrior, I pugged raids. I've tried to pug raid on my DK and it didn't go very well, but it's something I do. If I want gear from the raid, I'll try to pug it.
Okay, and then like PvP, are you getting any PvP gear, or are you just only doing pugging PvE?
I'm not like opposed to PvPing, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay,
I don't like PvP that much.
fair enough. Same, yeah.
Don't worry, he did not hold himself to the standard of needing to grind out his essences on that character either. He went and purchased them.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Thank goodness, man. Yeah, I actually
That's where I draw the
still
line.
I talk about how great and like friendly the patches, and then people come in and they're like, wait, but I still need to do all this to get my essences, and I'm just like, oh my god, that's still in the game if you're a returning player or whatever, or if you're a new player. Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good patch for ults, bad patch for people that are coming back to the game.
That's
You don't even have flying.
That's what I generally tell people too. If they ask me if they should get back in the game, I'd say you could get back in the game like a few weeks before Shadowlands launches. I think that makes a little bit more sense. Just so you can get like some corruption, get a little bit higher power. But I don't know if I would try to play out the patch from here until Shadowlands release, because I think at this point you would just be trying to catch up, and I don't know if you'd even be able to catch up before Shadowlands comes out.
You can, but it would, like, you're committing to like playing hard for the next 3 months to get your essences and your cloak caught up, and some semblance of gear, and you're not going to be powerful at all for those 3 months, and then you're gonna, like, at the end of that, Shadowlands is probably pre-patches hitting or whatever.
I mean, Malefic Cores have you gated until like mid-August at this point, and it's just like
10 weeks right now, I think 10 or 11.
I think
Yeah,
it's 11 now. Yeah, holy shit, man, it's just bananas.
that continues to amaze me that it hasn't been changed yet.
I suspect that's like I'm
hopeful that we get it in
awaiting-
the next couple weeks, but if
I'm awaiting the week, like, because there's no way that they could just have Malefic Cores, because it's not that it's a static like variable either. It's increasing in perpetuity. Like, you are continually getting further behind the longer you wait.
yeah, every 2 weeks another week gets added, right, to the amount of weeks. Actually, every week another week gets added, right, to the weeks to catch up.
Because 125 is the corruption resistance cap on the cloak, right? So getting to 125 resist is, I guess, the end, but that
That's in
doesn't happen
September.
for that doesn't happen for a long time.
Yeah. Whew.
It's pretty crazy. I don't really want to work on my Guardian Druid until they fix that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a vital thing, I think, for them to look at. The thing is, even though 30 corruption resistance or whatever feels like a small thing, it's just so disheartening on all. It's similar to, like, rank 3 of the good essences. It's like, yeah, maybe this is 5 or 10% or whatever, but, like, man.
Not to mention you have to do a vision and kill N'Zoth.
So
to
for
do
some of the better classes, corruption per point is about 200 damage per point, and say you are missing 230 corruption resistance, that is effectively 6,000 DPS.
Right, which again is not like you can't do it's not like alts that are 6,000 DPS behind are like dead or anything, but like
That is a lot.
it is
That's
something.
pretty
It
relevant for
just
that.
feels so bad to be time gated to that amount of damage behind, right, and not just be able to grind it up if you start playing that character. All right, but that, we strayed a little bit from talking about the Pugging It Up series. I guess my next question for you, Sham, is about, you're a very experienced player, right? You're rating in US second BDG. You've got a lot of experience on a lot of different specs at various points in the game's history.
MDI
So,
competitor.
Yeah, MDI competitor. all kinds of accolades, all kinds of Pringles cans in your background. How
true.
much would you say this series has like transferable information for the players that are actually on the forums complaining about how they have 1600 IO and nobody invites them to anything or whatever?
I think what I wanted to prove it was successful because it basically proved that people not like, it sounds kind of mean, but people not getting what they want to achieve is not the game's fault. Like, it's not because Radar Eye was like super flawed. Like, there are flaws, but you can still do it if you put the time in and become better at the game. It's not like super easy. It took me like 4 days of played time, which is a decent amount of time for an elite player to get like 15s in time. So it still takes like a good amount of work and networking, but it's doable. That's kind of what I wanted to prove, is that anyone can do it.
What?
I don't know if,
Okay. Yeah.
I don't actually know what it would be like if like I wasn't as good as I am. I don't know how much I was carrying the groups, like as a Fury Warrior you can't carry that much, you can only interrupt once, you have like one single target stun. So I'm not sure how much I was like that relevant.
I damage though, if you're doing good damage, that's that makes or breaks dungeons fairly often, I'd say.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And if you
I think you have a good comparison what you do with your Blood Decay as well, where you can control not only the group, who's invited to the group usually, and then like the pace of the key, how much you pull, how much is gonna be like how much you expect your group members to interrupt and all that, versus playing a Fury Warrior and just kind of going with the flow.
Yeah, my DK has been like significantly easier already. Like not only because I can get in the groups, because my performance has a massive impact on how the group does.
Do you think that you would struggle more if you were playing healer than even Fury Warrior, which is a fairly low utility class?
I think so, yeah, because I'm pretty much at their mercy. Like I keep them alive, but otherwise, like a healer's like at the mercy of the group. Like I want to try doing a healer at some point, but I do think it'd be a lot harder.
That can be the Shadowlands Pugging It Up series.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Let's talk about some of the things that you could actually what piece of advice you would give to players that are in this pugging it up position. What kinds of things would you tell them that you've learned from doing this yourself?
So there's two very big, like, obvious takeaways for me. One of them is I would spend like 10 minutes trying to queue for groups, trying to get like specific keys that I wanted or like things I needed for loot. And if that didn't go well, I would just put my own group in, or my own key in the group finder, no matter what it was, even if it was like something I already had when I want to Keystone Master. Because worst case scenario, someone leaves and you have the same key again. But most of the time, even if you deplete it, you get something else, and you could use that something else for score, or even if you don't get something you want, you meet 4 other people, and if the people are good, you can network with them and try to play with them again in the future. And that kind of ties into my other point, is network with people. Like that's actually huge. Every time you find someone you like or like you think is good, try to add them. I only had one person in the entire both series now that I asked to add and didn't accept. Out of like 10, all the other ones accepted me, which might be because I'm good. But
right, yeah, I think that ratio is based on like if you are relatively good at the
it depends on how good
you're
at.
at. Yeah.
But adding people, even if they aren't like amazing, if they're consistent and they're not going to leave and they're not like toxic, they're an asset. You can play with them in the future and have fun with them and have someone a little more consistent to play with. And they almost always will like play with you again too. Those are the two major takeaways I had for sure.
Do you recommend getting in voice? Because generally some advice that I give to players is like, I don't understand why people are so adverse to hopping in voice, even though it is a pug. I feel like just adding voice, it makes you able to do like 2 or 3 keystone levels higher, just even in the same group. I feel like it's just so much easier.
Yeah, the downside of that is it scares a lot of people away. Like they don't want to do voice. But if you do like a non-required voice, that could even help too. I haven't been doing voice because I don't want to like give away who I am.
Yeah, obviously.
But like the higher you get, the more it's like it actually is definitely helpful to be in voice. Like I noticed from pugging on my shaman back in the day, that being in voice made it like way more clean.
You need to get like a voice changer and an alt Discord account as well. you just go in and you've got like a different profile picture and you sound like 4 octaves higher or whatever. Yeah.
The random guild that invited my DK actually has a raid team, but they require Discord. So I was actually thinking about like making a new Discord account and just never talking. and just like coming to their raids because it was like a completely random invite, like one of those spam invite guilds. Where it'd be like an easy way to get gear.
This is when they like whisper you and they're like, hey, we're looking for anybody. We raid Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We're working on heroic raw den progression.
We're looking for anybody with a pulse currently.
Yeah.
If your body temperature is roughly 98 degrees, you're welcome to come to the raid.
Yeah, those guilds are they're out there. There are a lot of them. I think it would actually be really cool to see like actually what their raids look like and whether you can get anything out of them and like help them progress or anything.
Actually, that's something I definitely want to try. I think it'd be good for gear too if they actually kill bosses.
Yeah, definitely. If you're is it heroic or mythic?
I think the heroic at the moment. They have like a normal team and a heroic team. They have a couple of different raid teams.
Yes. Man, I'm gonna sound toxic. Do you think that they are planning on doing mythic soon? Just need to get a couple more people who want to do it?
I wouldn't doubt if that was the plan, but whether they actually do it or not.
Because I've seen a lot of guilds that have advertised that they're just need to get a couple more people together and then they can get their mythic squad on the way.
So, okay, anyways, as I'm going to conclude this Dratnos toxicity here, how do you feel about, like, being in legitimate raid guilds? Like, obviously, you're in a invite everyone kind of guild, but as for, like, joining an actual raid team that has similarly aligned goals, do you think that's normally going to be for your best interest?
If you have the time and the consistent schedule to raid, then yeah, that's definitely... You're going to get a lot more out of that, being in a guild that is a little more professional with the raiding and wants to be consistent and progress rather than like some random 12 team guild. So a lot of the problem with like these guilds that have a whole bunch of teams is they're all reliant on one person doing something, and that one person might not be reliable. Like if that one person that runs the team you're on decides they're going to stop, it's all over, like you're done. But a more professional guild has a much less likely chance to suddenly die like that.
Yeah, I know those like mega guilds that have like 2 mythic teams and 10 heroic teams or whatever, and it's I don't know. It's really like a bunch of different guilds that are all under one banner, but they don't have none of them has the like all of the organization and structure that they would have if they were just one guild with one team.
It's a bunch of guilds with like one officer per guild.
Yeah, exactly. And like there's not that kind of the safety net for all of them. All right. I think it would actually be really cool if you end up getting like I don't know how high you're planning to go with this, but if you end up getting fairly high, it would be cool to see how much of an impact like not having mythic raid gear is on farming or on key pushing, and like on getting invited into like 19s or whatever. That's something that if you get that high,
there's definitely a critical break point of eye level where you can't get invited to groups as a DPS player if you're like below 472 or something, and then like once you reach 473-ish, is they're like you just like suddenly go skyrocketing an acceptance rate or something like that. I was there on my hunter. I've been pugging keys here and there, not as much as Sham, but getting into groups where they don't recognize me is really fun for me to see like how the general pug dynamics work.
Yeah,
that's my favorite part is experiencing like what the community is like when we're not looking, like what's like the lower community like.
So how often do you notice people like just rage quitting out of the key, mid key, or just like being generally super toxic in chat?
It was really rare until like 15s. Like I don't think it happened a single time until they got to like 15s, and then it happened a couple times.
Really? Okay.
Actually, over 15, someone rage quit my 18 siege on my warrior.
Do you think it's because of like what do you think the reason is? Like entitlement?
I think it's because they're like taking it more seriously and they're taking themselves more seriously, so they get like a little more upset when things go wrong. Whereas like lower keys, people are just kind of there to get the key done and have fun.
I've seen a couple of funny rage quits this week too. I joined a 17 King's Rush on my hunter for just echoes the other day, and the Blood DK started the obelisk with the tank guy, the very first obelisk, immediately died to the first spear breaker, and then just left the key. I was just like, it's far from over. Don't leave the key.
Man, Grand Slam Gary claims another victim.
To prove a point, I actually killed him by myself as a hunter. I just kept rezzing my pet and kiting the spearbreaker guy, and then I hearthed out of the group after that. I was just like, come on, man, why leave?
Yeah, that reminds me of a King's Rest actually I did, where after the first trash pull in the gong room, Kelobbed, Tettles' warrior, had enough and just hearthed out.
That dude, no. I don't think you've explained what happened. We had wiped 3 times, and the key was like irreparably ruined. There was no fixing it. I was like, this is fucking awful. I'm such an idiot. Kalob died that day, dude.
That was, I think, the last time I've ever seen that character. Although that character, man, I wish that we were in the clip of the week times when that character was active, because there are some good ones, like the Sky Captain Crag getting knocked off of the out of the boss arena.
I don't know about getting knocked out of the boss arena. I don't remember that. I remember falling off like this ledge in Freehold, and it fucking just Corey May goes, "Did your shield break?" And Goosey goes,
Yeah,
"No,
that's right.
his brain broke, dude."
Oh god, dude. Okay.
Anyway, so you don't see people leaving like all too often until you start reaching the 15 range.
I can't think of a single time someone left in lower key, actually. Out of all the ones I've done on both characters, I don't think a single person has ever left.
That's
Unless they,
interesting.
like, agreed to leave.
All right.
I guess for them, there's like an extra incentive, right, for the weekly chest below level. Like people doing above 15 probably already have it done, or it's easy to get done, so they're not incentivized to just leave as soon as they're embarrassed or someone screws up.
I think it's also just like stuff going wrong is expected if you're in like a +9 key or whatever, but stuff going wrong in a 15 doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes it's just a good run.
Like, lower keys, they don't really know what they're doing necessarily, so they don't know when someone else messes up horribly either. They don't really care. I think it's when people want to score really bad, and when you wipe, they're like, "Oh, we're depleting now, peace," even if it's like totally still timeable, but they think it's not. Like I think that's why they leave most of the time.
Yeah, I feel like the bulk of the toxicity is like if you're below 1,000 radar IO points, there's very few toxic people, and then between like 1 and 3,000, that's like the peak toxic range where people are like really on that score grind. And
well, I don't think we even like interact with that in our like on our mains and stuff like that, and like any of us, like Sham even has pushed like for a couple seasons as well. And I don't think, just like the circles we run in, everybody's so well known that if you're like known as an asshole, you're just not going to get invited too, right?
Yeah, I think it's like a misconception actually. People always like say that high rated IO or like the high end players are super toxic, but I feel like it's like the middle players, the ones who like think they're super high end, but they're like kind of below, like a step below that are toxic. I don't know like any really high end players that are actually super toxic.
Because it's just hard to
couple, but...
like. The thing is that at that point the community is like only a couple hundred people big or whatever, right? And so your word of mouth is really important. But below that, word of mouth isn't a good way to police people. If there's like
burning bridges.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're never going to see that person again.
So how do you network at lower levels then? Like what would you say is the difference?
It's like you just kind of pug and add people, and then whenever if you want to do a key and they're online, you whisper them. It's kind of similar to higher levels, honestly.
Yeah, except people don't know each other.
Yeah, they don't necessarily know who you are, but they like remember you as being like, oh, it's this guy I did a key with earlier. He wants to do a key, let's do it. Like it's pretty straightforward actually.
I'm glad to hear that works in the way that we've been telling people it works. When we've been telling them to add people after keys. Yeah. I would feel pretty bad if that didn't actually do anything. All right. Let's move on to our second main topic of the week, where we're going to talk a little bit about Shadowlands dungeons. And Tettles, this is largely your topic here. So why don't you give us an intro to the theory behind here?
All right, so I think we had a show a couple months ago with Jack where we talked about like how mandatory utility. I think we were talking about the poisons in Temple of Sethralus, where it's like if you don't have a poison dispel for Temple of Sethralus, the Miraculous Room is really, really annoying. It's like almost not doable, especially once you start getting up to that higher range of keys. Like once you start getting to 21s, they're going to probably, like if you have 2 stacks of debuff on you, you're just going to die. Like there's not really much you can do about it. So we were talking about that a couple months back, and then I was like, okay, so maybe Shadowlands will change how dungeons end up working out, make them a little bit more fair for most groups to be able to complete within a certain number of key levels. But it seems like they are in fact going the opposite direction and going more towards class/spec specific utility is more mandatory, not less mandatory. And they're doing this in a couple of ways. First and foremost, I guess we can take a look at an Affront of Challengers, which is a Shadowlands alpha dungeon in the dungeon Theater of Pain. I would say that this is like if you condensed all of the buffs in Court of Stars and turned them into a boss encounter, this is what that would be.
Okay, so walk us through how this works. What are we looking at here? This is Zero, the Underhanded's ambush ability.
Okay, so it's a council fight. There's 4 bosses that are active at once. And I suspect that all of this utility is targeted at healers. So, right there, Zira with the 10-second ambush, I think that's directly targeted at Blessing and Protection, right? I think that's very fair to say that 10-second stun, like, if I got 10 seconds stunned, I would be so mad if there was no breakout for the 10-second stun.
Yeah, whereas Paladins can bubble or bop if it's on somebody else.
Exactly.
That's pretty sick. Other than that, it's just like DKI, Icebound Fortitude that's gonna break this, right?
Yes. And let it be known. Okay, so another thing that's also very important is that a lot of these lethal abilities that we're about to check out, Zira is the easiest, I think, out of all of these. A lot of these lethal abilities that we're about to take a look at, most of them occur whenever other bosses die. So there is some way to play around this, but it's not in a way that you would ideally like, unfortunately. So we can take a look at Sathel. He's immune to death effects if you don't kill him first, meaning that you either have to have a Mass Dispel or a Shattering Throw.
For 1 minute after you kill something else, right?
Yes, for 1 minute.
Okay.
He also has, I think he has like a Necrotic Bolt ability, which requires melee kicks, multiple melee kicks.
Right, and he'll be immune to interrupts if he doesn't die first. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, you have to kill this guy first. Fair enough.
Unless you have a Shattering Throw or a Mass Dispel.
Right, because you can get through one with death with either Shattering Throw or Mass Dispel. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other one, Zero, has a 10-second ambush, which you really want Bop for.
Okay.
And then we have Decia, which whenever another one of her allies dies, she will enrage. So you want to soothe.
Okay. Wait, okay, yeah. Fighting on until this effect is dispelled or any remaining companions have fallen. This seems like it'll happen when she dies. She'll enrage instead.
No, I think it's whenever her allies die, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe I read that incorrectly.
Okay.
And then you have Pancrean, which is
Pancreas.
basically that one,
yes.
which requires a revival. There's an AoE disease.
Okay. Well, you can't have both a revival. I guess you can have a revival and a bop. So if you have a prot warrior, a ret pally, a Mistweaver monk, and a
shadow
druid
priest
with a soothe, yeah, then you actually just handle all of these abilities and you can just kill these in any order.
Where are your melee kicks in this?
Okay, you're right. Yeah, so you need
so prot pally and DPS warrior, I guess.
Yeah, prot pally, DPS warrior. Okay, so how much do you think, though, this is going to be something where it's like, in order to do this dungeon at a high key level, you need all of these? Or how much is it like, if you have 1 or 2 of these, you're chilling?
And that was the question I was posing.
Okay.
It's like, how important do we think that this stuff needs to be? And like, where do you think you would draw the line in terms of key difference? Like 1 key level difference? 2, 3, 4, 5? Like, where do you think the line should be drawn for that? Something like that. Because right now, we have certain things in the game that are incredibly imbalanced week to week, and especially with compositions. Such, like we were talking about, Marekth's Room, I think is a really good example of that. Raging the whole of Fix, very imbalanced if you don't have an Enrage spell in your group. Should the developers expect you to have, be able to have access to this very unique utility?
I think that actually Marekth's Room is very different from this. I think that, so to me, hopefully, this looks more like Samrak, where, like, okay, Tremor Totem, neutralizes this, Mass Spell neutralizes this, Warlock Imp Dispel neutralizes this, Revival neutralizes this, Immunities neutralize this, so there's, like, a bunch of different ways that you can interact with it, and if your group doesn't have any of those, you can still do it, right? But it's worse.
Right. I agree with that.
Hopefully, so I think that this is better than, like, if you don't have anything like this and you just have poisons in a dungeon, then it's really binary, like, do you have a poison dispel or not? But if you
Yes.
have all this stuff where it's like, all right, here's the thing that Mass Dispel interacts with, or the Shattering Throw. Here's the thing that Spell Steal interacts with, or a Soothe or whatever. And it's more a question of like, okay, which ways do you have to make this thing slightly easier, rather than like, do you have the one Dispel you need for the dungeon?
Okay, and for what it's worth, you do also have an option. Like, I don't think some of these abilities activate until other members of the group die. So you do have access to be able to kill one all the way through. You can look at the overview too. It also talks about some of the abilities. You do have the option to kill like a couple of these all the way through before some of the very annoying effects end up working out that basically you're not able to deal with unless you have some of this niche utility.
Yeah, I wonder what the kill order is going to be. Okay, so for me, the important thing is like, how bad is this if you do the like kill order where you have no interaction with any of these things, right? How much are you dead? Like, are you dying to this AoE poison because you have to trigger that a couple times?
Yeah.
Like,
or say you're running like 3 of the same class. Say you're running like a triple druid comp, and then like, I don't know, you just have like 2 other classes to round it out. Maybe some with like really bad overlapping utility. Like, what would the worst comp be? Like a rogue and a hunter with triple druid.
well, rogues have the enrage the spell in Shadowlands.
Well,
so.
if you have triple druid already, then you already have 3.
Oh, that's true. Okay, yeah.
Same
So
with rogue and shiv.
Well, I think
like,
you can make a comp that doesn't have any like. You can make a comp that doesn't interact with any of these things, right? Like, that's definitely possible. So by putting things like Elemental Shaman in your group, you wouldn't have anything to interact with any of these abilities.
Purge, I guess.
Purge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, you could purge Spectral Transference at least. So
I think
fair.
the soothes and purges look pretty interesting, and maybe it'll make a big difference in that boss fight. But stuff like the disease going on the whole group, that sounds to me like it's a lot like Full Call's disease, where he just puts out a disease. If you have a dispel in the group, it helps a little bit. It's a little less healing, but otherwise, it's just normal for the healer to deal with. I think I also think this is like really early in the dungeon journal, and this boss hasn't been engaged yet, and some of these bosses might not be active, like on a weekly rotation or something.
Oh man, Miss Moo, dude, I do not want to go into another
Freehold rotation.
Council of Captains?
Yeah, Council of Captains, or any of those kind of rotations.
The
I hate
KR
those.
one is notoriously bad. I think Council of Captains is a little bit easier, but yeah.
I mean, Council of Captains, the difference between Tyrannical Eudora and no Tyrannical Eudora is whether the key is doable or not.
Sure. I'm not huge on weekly rotations either, though.
Anyways, yeah.
But yeah, so how big do you guys think the difference should be, Sham? Like, do you have an opinion on this, really?
I don't know, like, I don't have like a concrete opinion, because I think it should be, like, utility should be relevant, right? But I don't think, it's like, there's got to be like a breakpoint somewhere where it goes from being relevant to required. Like, I think it's like not unreasonable to think that like certain things could be required for like the highest keys, but for just doing like your weekly between like 15 and 20, I don't think you should have to have like 4 different utilities for like one dungeon. That seems excessive. I think having it be helpful is good, but I don't think having it be required is good.
So like maybe 1 key level. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, like the difference between having the effects and not being about 1 key level. I don't know. Like, I think that as long as your comp is well balanced and doesn't like, and you haven't picked like 3 copies of the same spec or whatever, I think you should be able to handle most fights without it being horrific. And I
would you be okay with this being polarizing even if it's just one dungeon?
I would. That for me, that would be like a stain on the dungeon. That would be a stain on the expansion as well. If it's like you need this spec, like Toldagor requiring rogues, for instance, to me is something that I'm not hot on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it just like hinders almost every group comp out there that's not a set meta comp with a rogue,
Mm-hmm.
Just like, well, I guess we're not doing this key. We'll pick one of the other 4.
I think it's a little bit better if it's like a non-meta spec that's being encouraged, but even still, I think that there shouldn't be like, okay, this is the prop paladin dungeon or whatever. This is the dungeon where you need one of these specs.
So for what it's worth, class diversity is a very critical point for how dungeons are run right now. This is like, for us as higher end players, this looks very bad because we play in an infinite scaling system. But for those who are completing a weekly 15 or who are pugging it through LFG and have access to more unique utility on a basis of using LFG, this seems pretty good, does it not?
Depends what class you are.
Yeah, like Exactly. Like you're not getting invited if you're, if it becomes required to have a soothe or whatever, it's going to be like, it's going to be your raging week, like right now, where you're, only inviting a Resto Druid or whatever as your healer. I think that, I don't know, like I think that this is it's likely to be fine in Pugs no matter what, but I don't think it's particularly good for them or anything. I just think that it's important they land basically where Samrek is, right? Where it's doable with any comp, but each of these like little bits of utility makes it like it's noticeably better, and you're like, this is cool, I have this utility, but it doesn't make it go from unkillable to killable. I think that's just where they got to end at this. They got to land with that.
Yeah. Basically, like you still want people's toolkits to feel unique, I think is what you're getting at, while the availability of being able to complete that is still there, even though you don't have what would be deemed the best utility for this specific thing, right?
Right. So having 10 different abilities that are each answered by like a couple of unique class abilities, I think is actually a pretty good place to end up with, because like most comps are going to have some, but not all of those answers.
Okay, so how do you feel about stuff like Engineering Battle Res?
Fine with it. Would like it to be buffed slightly. I think
Really?
Battle Res as a thing that whether you like your comp either is good or bad at Battle Res, I don't think that's very fun.
Okay, what about Drums and Bloodlust?
Yeah, Drums I think is fine. Drums and Lust I think is fine right now.
They're nerfing Drums by a significant amount. They're nerfing them from I think it's 25% haste to 15% haste.
I think that's just the old Drums.
That's a lot.
I think that's the like Drums of Fury, Drums of Maelstrom, Drums of the Mountain, but I think the Shadowlands Drums are still going to be 25.
Oh, really?
They haven't been announced. That has not been announced yet. Are
Okay,
you sure?
that was how I read into it, but yeah, I could be wrong.
If
Drums are half as good as Lust, then yeah, I guess I'd
That
probably
seems
still be okay
too-
with it.
I'm a big fan of like any makeup utility items like drums or the battle res engineering item being just like slightly worse than the actual class ability. Like drums as they are now, I think is perfect. I think engineering res range should be buffed, like Drano said. I think there should be a Chaos Brand scroll type of thing.
Take that backfire off of the Endrit. I've died to that thing twice now.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't
That
died
should not
yet.
exist.
I'm just waiting. I've
Man,
res probably like
backfire-
60 times.
This is why you should turtle before you energy res.
I've been playing DH. And like sometimes you nether before
Nether.
you do it. Yeah, and that's often the right move, but like sometimes you can't do that, man. You're just there, there's like I've twice in Freehold I've died to that stupid backfire. Man. Alright,
Okay, so Chaos Brand and Mystic Touch.
yeah, those are things that I think are a problem the way
Yeah.
they are right now.
Is it because of availability?
I think it's also just because of like for me it's just how polarizing it is to have like the first DH and not the second in like a raid group, or the first monk but not the second. I think that I don't know. I don't like it when your answer to like should we bring this player to the raid is based on do we already have one of their class.
I
then
think-
if the answer is no, you're just like we really need this player, and if the answer is yes, you're like we don't care about this. We don't want this guy.
But in terms of thinking about like making your class fun, the answer of like I can get this via a profession is also not ideal.
Yeah, well, I think Chaos Brand and Mystic Touch are stupid. I think that they're.
I think they should just be
they're
like
dumb.
nerfed significantly,
Yeah,
or put on other classes too. I think like those are too powerful compared to the other buffs. In my
Yeah.
opinion.
It's hard to like balance them in raid and Mythic Plus too, right? Because in raid you have 20 players that can potentially bring those buffs, and in raid or Mythic Plus you only have 5.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
like class buffs as they are at all right now. And they only in a couple of classes, or only in like half the classes. And
So-
two of them can't be scrolled.
How do you strike a good balance of like class utility feeling unique while at the same time making it accessible for the players? Do you think it comes in terms of like the boss fights or like the trash, or do you think it comes in terms of like adding it and giving availability via professions?
I think that it's just you don't want the stuff that like so some stuff should have professional alternatives like battle res or whatever. I don't think it's a pleasant experience to have your comp just not have a battle res in it and just be looking at it and you're like, well, I guess we have to find like one of these 2 classes or whatever that has or 3 classes that has a battle res to make this comp work. I don't think that's cool, but I think that the other stuff like stuff like Mass Dispel, right, I think is in a good place where it's like Mass Dispel is really cool and useful in some spots, and it's never you never like need it, right? But it's really cool when you have it and it's useful. I think that all class utility that's like that, you don't need professional alternatives for that. You just whatever classes you bring, you have their copies of those sorts of effects. So making more stuff like that and less stuff like Chaos Brand Mystic Touch as the class utility is the way I would go.
It's interesting food for thought. I feel like it's like at what point does it just completely homogenize classes and specs to the point where you're only going to pick what is the top DPS?
It wouldn't though, right? Like, you know,
if everybody has access to everything, you're only going to take the top DPS.
Okay, what are you doing right now?
Only taking the top DPS because everything's homogenized.
So then why would it be worse if we could do that, but also, you know, have battle reses?
I'm not necessarily saying it is or it isn't. I'm just giving an alternative opinion here. Like, why would you want to bring something that's less desired, like that does like lower damage? What would be the incentive for that?
I think that it is better to pick and choose based on Shroud's a good example. I think it's better to pick and choose though based on like who's going to do the most damage than based on who has Chaos Brand. Because like if you're a good Shadow Priest, you can do 5% more damage or whatever. You can do 3% more damage. You can overtake the other class. But no matter how good you are at Shadow Priest, you are not bringing Chaos Brand, right? That's not something that you can do. You're not bringing, you know, Mystic Touch. You're not doing any of that. So like at least damage is something that is a factor of your spec, your gear, and your skill, right? Chaos Brand is just your spec, and that's annoying. I think that's worse.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to our Q&A segment. This question comes from Shampy, who asks Sham why he's cheating in his series. Sham, what do you have to say to defend yourself in your Pugging It Up series?
Hold on.
What is the cheating
What's he
accusation
talking
here?
about? Yeah.
He's been flaming me for buying essences since I started. He thinks it's cheating.
He thinks that buying essences is cheating.
Because new players wouldn't be able to buy essences. But I'm the one who make the series. I make the rules. I'm not cheating. I can make the rules to make it where I'm not cheating, you know?
There's no way that's cheating. Like if you had to buy your own essences, that's just delaying your series by like a couple months, right? Like that's all there is to it.
Like my warrior never had blood of the enemy the whole time, and it was just like a little bit weaker because of that the whole time. I don't think that's like fun, engaging content.
All right, Shampy says, it is a from scratch series in all caps.
Technically, I never said that.
Oh my goodness. This is...
I make the rules.
All right, next question comes.
You shouldn't fly anywhere either. You should have.
Yeah, get Pathfinder
only.
before you can fly.
Ground mounts only shit.
All right, next question comes from Cruel on Discord. You guys mentioned the Horde being the superior race for M+, and the difficulty for Alliance players finding groups due to the smaller player base, etc. But isn't Alliance what always is being played in the MDI due to having access to Shadow Meld? Wouldn't it be desirable for M+ push groups to switch to Alliance because of Shadow Meld, or is the edge so little over Horde there? And if so, why do teams choose to play Alliance in the MDI?
I'll take that one. So basically, your most important asset in live keys and live Mythic Plus is your ability to network when you're first getting into it. And Alliance doesn't have much of that. Like, there's just not the people out there to do keys with. There's a couple groups, yeah, you can do it, but it's going to take a lot longer than if you went Horde and played with the larger majority of people playing the game.
Yeah, there's like last season there were people who swapped every week, right? Dr. J's team or whatever, they would swap every week factions twice to raid on Horde and then M+ as Night Elves.
Using their stream donations, nonetheless.
Yeah, I don't think that that's as big of a deal this time around. Like, I think that Shadow Meld is not like 2 key levels like it was last season or whatever. With Beguiling, I think that with Awakened, it's, you know, it's not as much of a difference, right?
It wasn't MDI because you weren't doing Obelisk, but
right
when you're doing the Obelisk, you can just use that to skip. You don't need Shadow Meld.
Right, yeah. In MDI, first of all, like, smaller differences are more important. You know, a 1-minute difference is much more important in a 19-minute dungeon than a 36-minute dungeon. Second of all, in MDI, there's no cost to being Alliance, so you're just going to pick the best race, even if it's the best by a smaller amount. You still just can pick that, and you're not picking a faction like you are on live. And yeah, third of all, you're skipping all the obelisks, so it really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also for the MDI, alliance thing. Everybody in MDI plays alliance because they don't have to network at all. Like they have the 5 players for their team, and that's who they're going to play with the whole time in the tournament. So they can just do whatever they want with classes or racial utility.
Exactly.
There's no guilds either. You don't have to like be in a raiding guild too. You already have all the gear. Like
Right.
all the benefits are there.
All right. Next question comes from Fade on Discord. What do you think about giving professions more relevance in M+ by introducing items that take the place of various class abilities? Mystic Touch and Chaos Brand are suggested here, which obviously I'd be in favor of. But some kind of like Shroud consumable or Soothe consumable. What do you guys think about adding those kinds of abilities to professions as well?
I fully agree with that. I think they should be in the game. I think it would help this game be more competitive and consistent.
It really comes down to a how far is too far kind of question, because like you have to balance like spec and class identity versus the access to like accessibility to everything, right?
I would say Shroud to me is something that is enough powerful that it should be nerfed or given to more specs, or a weaker version should be made available in the profession system. Yeah. I don't think that like, Mass Dispel needs to have that treatment as well, though. I think it's just something as impactful as Shroud, Battle Res. Those are the kinds of things that,
There is a Shroud consumable. It's literally invisibility potion, but people are not willing to use it.
Well, it's not as good.
Well,
that one I agree with.
Right? But yeah, like,
That one is there, yeah.
I guess Invispot is the Shroud thing. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, yeah, I
It's a
think it's
5-minute
really important
cooldown.
that it's there.
It's not that bad anymore. Like it used to be a 10-minute cooldown, and that was distracting, but people still could use it and make up for stuff in Legion.
People are not willing to Invispot, which is just so random to me. I don't know why.
Yeah,
Part of the issue is you can't mount on it though, so you like a lot of the shroud skips you can't do.
That's a difference there. The fact that you're not able to mount on it is pretty bad in some situations, but like if you ever suggest Invispotting somewhere, people just completely throw the idea out the window regardless of what it is.
My pars.
Yeah.
I buy 6 potions.
Actually, yeah, I think that Invispot, though, like, aside from the fact that it only works on half the shrouds, because a lot of the shrouds are, like, full-length mount shrouds.
All right, yeah. So the Altalazar Shroud of Volcall, you have to be mounted for that. Like, what else do you actually have to be mounted for?
Skystep and Shroud is pretty good, too. Coordinated groups can get a lot farther in indoor dungeons with Skystep during a Rogue Shroud.
The ML Shroud that you used to do required you being mounted, but the ML Invisibility Potion, the Obelisk, is not required.
Yeah, I mean, this season with Obelisk, Shroud is just not that important, right? Like, Obelisks, to me, are enough of a budget Shroud that it's fine. But yeah, I guess I'd like to see Invispot slightly buffed to catch up a little bit to Shroud.
Should there be potions that dispel poison disease or diseases?
There
or
is.
Do you think that should stay with Stalwart?
Dude, Purification Potion. You guys haven't been using
All right, that
Purification
spells one
Potions?
stack.
No,
Shut the
okay.
hell up.
That's not good enough.
Man, that's
Sham,
big
If that was
value.
buffed, though.
Do you know what a Purification Potion is, Sham?
Not a clue.
Okay, so Purification Potion, where's it from, BC?
I thought it was from Vanilla, but maybe VC,
Okay.
yeah.
Anyways, it's from a long time ago. It's an ancient potion, and it removes a poison or disease, but it removes only 1 stack.
Yeah, it's from WoW Classic even. Here's the classic Wowhead entry for Purification Potion. As you can see. Attempts to remove 1 curse, 1 disease, and 1 poison from the imbiber.
Attempts?
1.
Yeah.
It does. It doesn't.
It does, yeah.
It
Okay.
does.
It's successfully
Random chance to
attempted.
backfire and kill the person using the potion, though.
No, false.
How did
All
you
right.
feel about failure detection pylons? Is that too far?
I liked them because there's a big downside in like the death counter and having to heal back up and buff back up and stuff. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, that felt closer to Shroud than Invispots do. To me.
I was a huge fan of pylons. That made Mythic Plus really enjoyable.
I think they're a bit egregious, but I understand the alternative opinion here.
Yeah,
I think they're a bit too far.
I think the main problem is that Shroud, in the way that it existed in seasons 1 through 3 of BFA, was horrific, right? It was just horrific for dungeon balance.
Okay, can we talk about for a
True.
second the fact that you have to be engineering for battle, like using the engineering res? That's actually so trash.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Just like the scrolls and like the locks and like the lock picking shit. It's not gated, but for some reason, Engi res is.
The locks are gated, aren't they?
Oh wait, they are gated, aren't they? The
Drones and stuff
blacksmithing.
aren't, though.
the blacksmithing ones are. The inscription ones aren't, right?
It's like
I
weirdly
thought they both
inconsistent.
were.
You have to be the profession to use the items. Yeah, on both blacksmithing
Oh,
and
wow.
inscription.
Never mind then. But okay,
Yeah,
then why the
inscription-
fuck is scrolls not gated?
Oh right, inscription has the keys too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm looking back through all the earlier BFA dungeons, and I don't think there's a single run. Oh, there is. Okay, in season 1, there were some groups going without. There was one group that went without a rogue and made a top 20 run, but yeah, rogue is just, I don't know, man. I think that like Tettles it kind of gets on this position about like, oh, you know, it would be so imbalanced if the game were, you know, changed in this way. But I think that the point that I would make is that the game was so imbalanced the way that it launched in BFA and the way that it existed that already. So like that it's not like you're changing a balanced game to an imbalanced one. You can just make it unbalanced in a slightly less stupid way.
I want it to be well known that I'm just throwing an
Yeah.
adverse opinion out here. I don't necessarily believe that. I prefer a more unified system, anyways. I think that you should have access to all utility, but I'm just playing devil's advocate for the sake of.
No, I think that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next one comes from Zoo. What do you think about getting rid of factions so you can raid or do dungeons with the opposite faction? I think that this would be something that Blizzard should do if they would like for Alliance players to be able to do competitive PvE. That is something. If that is a goal of Blizzard Entertainment, this is the solution. If that's not something that you care about being feasible, then it doesn't matter. But
I don't think they're ever going to do it, but I do wish they would.
I think
Yeah.
the imbalance is like so big now that I feel like they probably should, but I also think they probably won't.
It's pretty bad. I was kind of surprised when they announced that Shadowlands wasn't going to have merge factions and that
Yeah,
they had no plans for doing that.
I was predicting it as well. Like after that cinematic came out where Jaina and Bane were like, oh, you know, what's different this time? We are. And then they just, you know, nothing is actually.
And then the
different
game
this
devs
time.
were like,
Yeah.
no.
Game devs were like, the Alliance Horde conflict is the core part of World of Warcraft, so Alliance players can't do raids. Haha.
That's the
Yeah.
conflict. Is they just can't raid.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. And on that note, I think that will about do it for our show this week. Thanks so much for coming on, Sham. Good luck with the rest of your Pugging It Up series. Everybody should go check that out over on YouTube. We'll put a link into the Twitch chat and into the description for anybody who wants to go and find that Pugging It Up series. We'll be back next week, though, for another episode. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye, everybody.